Hello. Subsequent to the last video, I feel I can put this into context by looking at the micro and the macro. Now, I feel the easiest way to understand this is when you get a flash come into your mind of a dream that you've had, but as soon as you go to think of it, that dream disappears and dissolves like sand trying to grip sand in the hand. And of course it disappears. This is also evident in meditation. When you become the observer of yourself, when you start seeing these pictures in the mind's eye, how if you then start focusing on the pictures that you're seeing and no longer being the observer, how those will also dissolve. So let's have a look at what is going on inside us. In the mind, which is the E of the ME, is the electrical circuits of the brain, the conscious mind. Now the true sight, the true feeling from the gut feeling, the Christ consciousness, is dielectric. For that dielectric energy to work requires switching off that electrical circuit of the conscious mind, which allows the internal dielectric and magnetism, which is the same thing as Ken Wheeler explains. It allows that Kundalini rising, provided you stay the observer of yourself. So then when we put this in the context of the macro, the same principle applies, that it is the dielectric of what we are standing on, this motherboard, this Mother Earth, in this simulation. The seawater is like our tears. It contains a salt solution. You'll notice when you have a certain feeling, whether it be sadness or joy, how those tears will go across and stick to the outside of the domes, the lenses of our eyes, until it becomes too much, and then you have the waters from above. But if you have the control of that, those tears can go back down again. But for the point of this, those tears will coat the outside of our lenses of our eyes. But now we're talking in the macro. Think of how water, you don't use a water fire extinguisher on an electrical fire. Likewise, with this seawater, why you have rising tides, this is a duality realm. It is, shall we say, a gathering in advance of collecting up the waters, which why they appear to be rising, which will then be magnetically or dielectrically drawn and stick to the inside of the lens of this simulacrum. Think of the earth as being like an eye. We are actually standing on the iris part of it. You could see the white of the eyeball very much like the Antarctic ring. This is something that Lloth has pointed out, and she also sees the earth as being like the iris. The part that we're on, the land areas, are like the irises of the eye, the coloured area. And of course you have this projection onto a big screen that is coming out of the centre, so we say North Pole, the Mount Meru. It is projecting out onto a screen, and it is then having an influence on us. Likewise, from our gut feeling inside, it has an influence on us, how we feel about things. And so when you are the observer and you allow that energy to rise up, you've got your magnetism and your electric, your ME, that is going on inside you on the macro level. And the same principle will apply to this simulacrum, to this reality that we find ourselves in. So you'll see that vapor canopy rise. Now, maybe in a very short space of time, it will be giants who either create or restore casing blocks to the outside of the Great Pyramid of Giza. I am of the opinion that those casing blocks are like an insulation, and I don't feel that's going to work. But at the same time, like I said on the last video, it is the energy within us combined, and I don't feel it needs to be that many of us to do it. When the system is talking about reducing population numbers, consider what they really mean. This is a test. Some will not make it. They will not pass the test. Others will. That is down to each individual to find the right computer program to operate in this simulation. And that is the language lessons of the heart, the Lloth. I cannot help but also seeing Lloth and Thoth. Double L. As I've said before, the L represents the lower calf and the foot. You are on to L's. Then you have the organic. Then you have the T, which is the creator. It is the I at its highest level. And then H is being in human form. It replicates when a cell splits into two and you have that little bridge before the cells pull apart and become separate cells. One becomes two, as it were. And one becomes two in this reality into either a male or a female avatar. But of course, inside you, you still have your two aspects. You have your divine feminine side, which is your nurturing and your creativity. And then you have your leading side, which is the divine masculine that is going out into the external world, a bit like a hunter-gatherer, as it were. But it's finding that balance within oneself, building that bridge. That is your holy grail, that is your crucible, that is the seat of the creator, shall we say, the oversoul, or whatever you want to call it, or maybe you want to call it Enki, that operating system that is within us. Notice operating system and L, you've got the component parts of the soul, which you all are. But this game is all about finding out who you truly are, and it is not that thing you look in the mirror. It's not these meat suits, these avatars. They are just the housing, the embodiment. It is the host of the Christ consciousness. The individual part. So you are aware that you are an individual, but at the same time you are not individual. You are part of something greater. You are a creation and an aspect of the divine. So it's very important, if you're operating a computer, to understand the language in which you need to communicate, to give the instructions. And that is the language lessons of the heart, the Lloth. So hopefully that's added a bit more clarity to the last video. As I went and had a shower and I thought, did I really explain it properly, or do I need to say a bit more? So see the Great Pyramid schematic with those shafts, those 4 shafts. Think of them as like the eyes and the ears, but of course they're blocked off to the outside world, or were blocked off to the outside world. And it's all going on internally inside of us. We are basically a physical living version of that Great Pyramid, you could say. Consider also on the back of the dollar bill, everybody has pointed out to the capstone and where the eye is, but look where the eye is. It is not on the top, at the very point of the cornerstone that sits on top of that pyramid. It is roughly where your third eye would be. Don't see the system as working against you. It is just guiding you, but in a very twisted way. It needs, as Jason describes with the Bibble Babble Bible, you need to take off those Hebraic filters and start having an understanding of how it is the object of the game that God becomes man, so man can become God. because we have this power to co-create. What if you were given this same space in a different frequency so you could now create onto? What would you create? Is your thinking from the heart? Are you going to create harmony, or are you going to create another version of this world as it is now? This comes with a huge responsibility, and that again is a core theme with this spiritual awakening, is taking personal responsibility for our own actions, for our own words, for our own thoughts. When it talks about the Word and the Word was made flesh, it's not necessarily talking about vocalizing it, it's talking about the words that you think. Because even that has an interaction. If you see the iris of the eye as being like a multi-strand cable cross-section, you have an interaction from the eyes. If the Earth is putting out a broadcast signal that is beaming up and putting a pattern in the sky, what about from the pupils of our eyes? In this duality realm, we have two eyes, so we're putting out, shall we say, a duality. It's described as a sun eye and a moon eye, after all. I'm sure most of you have seen that referencing to the celebrities and politicians and things, and all having that black eye. But untwist what is being shown and see the mirror of what is being shown in the material and find the spiritual. As Ken Wheeler said, it's a consubstantiality of matter and spirit. So there's two things always that have come together in this unified form, in this reality. You are a spirit in a material body, an organic body. This is an organic realm. But humanity is going to evolve. It's a spiritual evolution. For there to be a spiritual evolution, part of that species will go extinct. The other part will adapt and evolve like everything else does in nature. You will be able to develop that communication with all other life, from mineral to plant to animal, a telepathic communication in feeling. Even if you just get the concept of that and not had the experience of interaction, acting with nature, just think how wonderful that is and how wonderful it can be. And I'm speaking, shall we say, from experience, because I do have a memory of a paradise. And interestingly, I cannot give you an idea of scale, because I don't know if I was a 20-foot giant, because everything is relative. So the trees will be just as tall from my perspective as a giant as if I'm like I am now in 6 foot and looking at a tree. I covered this a long, long time ago on this ratio of 30:1, when it is described as this atom being 3,000 elves, which works out at 180 foot. It's 30 times present sizes. So those dragonflies with 6 foot wingspans are a 30 times increase on a modern dragonfly. And this pattern seems to repeat with everything. So it shows how in the previous pre-Diluvian world, how everything was relative but also greater in size. And of course then you have these transitional periods, so you will have this coexistence. And of course then when you have humans again that are 6 foot, a 15-footer may seem to be seen as a threat. Obviously the largest ones, the Titans, will need that full atmosphere, that full Similiechrome, vapor canopy atmosphere in which to develop. But they would also then be the first affected if that was to change again. But that's off in the way distant past. Was it 2106 and 2178? We've got we're still at school. We've still got all this learning, the lessons, language lessons of the heart, and doing the inner work, putting that oxygen mask on ourselves first. Right, so I don't want this to be as long as the first video. We're roughly about half that with 14 minutes. So I will say love to you all. Hopefully that's clarified things a bit more than I did in the first video, and given you a bit more to it and helped get the concepts. And then it's down to you then to put these things into practice and make it a part of your daily life and live as you wish to live. Put things into action and lead by example. It's not about going out there with brass bands and fireworks and look at me, look at me. A lot of this is being done very quietly. Probably there's a lot of people that don't have YouTube channels. They're just putting these things into practice and putting out that language lessons of the heart, putting it into practice, making it part of their daily life. It's through practice, 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 programming ourselves rather than being programmed by a system. So love to you all, and ta-ta for now.